All right, welcome everybody. Today is July 12th, 2021. I'm Mayor Densmore, and this is a meeting of the Gulf Manor Village Council. If you would stand as you are able to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to get us started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first thing we'll do is start off with a roll call to establish that we have a quorum.
Mr. Betcher?
Present.
Ms. Cheney?
Present.
Mr. Knapp?
Here.
Mr. Pridenoff?
Here.
Ms. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Van Haar?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you. All right, so all members have had a copy of the agenda to look at. I mentioned earlier I would like to adjust this. We have a guest here, Commissioner Greg Kesterman with the Hamilton County Health Department. And I would like to move that to the top of the agenda after we approve the minutes from our previous meetings, and then have Chief Timmers following proclamation that I'll read right after Mr. Kesterman's report and after the proclamation. So do I have a motion to accept that agenda?
Motion to accept the agenda as amended.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Let's see, so I know that we have several minutes to approve, is that right? Just not.
First one is June 14th.
So do we have a motion has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from June 14th? And is there a motion to accept the amendments or amend the amendments?
Second.
Any requests for amendments to it? All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Right. This is it, or did we have other minutes as well?
Yeah, I've got them here.
Okay. I'm gonna sign it first.
This is June 21st.
June 21st minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
July 1st.
July 1st minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. All right, is that? Okay, so I've invited the Hamilton County Health Commissioner, Greg Kesterman, to come do a COVID debriefing with us. It's been a long journey. It's been difficult on many levels. Hopefully, we've learned a lot, and Greg is the point man for reviewing where we've been and where we are now, and to answer any questions we may have. So with that, Commissioner Kesterman.
Well, thank you much, Mayor and Council, for having me here tonight. As I go through the presentation, feel free to interrupt if you have a question. I'm happy to take it as we go. Tonight I'll run through a little bit of where we've been. I think that first couple months is kind of critical, and how quickly things changed that first couple months. I'll touch on where we're at today and then open it up for any other discussion that you may want to have. So looking at it from a timeline perspective, I know early on, we know the virus was first named in January of 2020. We know the virus was around before it, but we didn't have a really good understanding of what that virus looked like. As soon as January 20th of 2020, the virus was here in the United States for the first time. It was in Washington State, which is the only spot we believe the virus to be. Looking at media reports today and some studies, most likely that is, it happened before that, but at the time, we believe the first virus happened in Washington State. As we move forward, by the end of the month, by the end of January, the World Health Organization declared the virus a public health emergency. Quickly following, the Trump administration issued travel bans on January 31st. Typically with travel bans and closing your borders and restrictions, with most viruses, you're able to quickly stop the spread of it. What I think we didn't know at the time was how easily transmittable this virus was and how many people could get sick and not show symptoms. And so I think that's one piece of information we definitely did not have at the time that might have impacted how we would have responded to the pandemic differently. By March 1st, our first death occurred in Washington State. You may recall some of the media outlets covering this death. It was the first of many to happen within a nursing home in Washington State. And that really has been one of the major themes throughout the pandemic. This pandemic hits our senior population extremely hard. It's much more aggressive, and the outcomes for seniors when they get COVID-19 are extremely poor. Moving forward, by the 11th of March 2020, the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. The U.S. also very shortly thereafter declared a national emergency. And then by March 19th, Hamilton County had our first case of COVID-19 here in the northern part of the county. We quickly, just a few days later, on March 22nd, the state of Ohio started issuing some of those first stay-at-home orders. Those would get adopted several different ways and modified ultimately to close down essentially the whole state. By the end of the month, the entire country had cases of COVID-19. Many states had deaths associated with COVID-19. I think the other important thing to look back at and reflect on is when this virus first appeared, we had no treatment. We weren't good at treating. The death rates were extremely high for those known cases. Certainly the death rates would get adjusted as we found out more and more people had it. But if you had COVID, it wasn't necessarily a good prognosis. The other thing that happened at the beginning of this pandemic was our lack of equipment for our personnel in our healthcare industry. Tonight, you're recognizing healthcare workers. Clearly, at the early onset of this pandemic, we were asking them to do a lot with very little protection. And that was all in the name of keeping us safe. So we've come a long way since then, but it's shocking to think about how quickly this pandemic unfolded in our country and our state and our county. Oops, I'm going backwards, sorry. So reflecting on what our agency did throughout the pandemic, we played a major role with enforcement of the orders here in this county. We always, regardless of what program, we have always had education over enforcement model, meaning we try to educate our businesses that we regulate before we go in with the club. So we held that same model with COVID-19. If we went to a business that was supposed to be closed, we talked to them, made them understand the requirements, and often with that conversation, they would take the necessary steps either to close or to require masks or to do a better job with social distancing. My team responded to over 3,000 complaints over the course of the beginning of that pandemic. It resulted in several phone crashes and much adjustment as we went along the way. We also issued 71 notices of violation, and ultimately there were 7 instances in which we had to make referrals to the prosecutor's office to help us along the way. The other major piece of our response dealt with contact tracing. So we all probably have become somewhat knowledgeable of what contact tracing is. Essentially, with any case of COVID-19 or any communicable disease, if you can slow down the people that have been in the circle of the individual that was sick, you have a chance at slowing the disease spread down significantly. So my team made, over the course of the pandemic, over 50,000 phone calls associated with COVID-19. My team, actual employees, we grew from 95 employees to 117 employees today, but also we added on about 120 contact tracers. So a whole other 120 people working from home doing this work on our behalf. We created outbreak teams, so businesses, we didn't want to leave them in the dark. We tried our best. If you had a case of COVID within your business, we tried to be your partner. We tried to reach out and make communication with you and help you along the way. So it was a pretty daunting task, and really couldn't be prouder of my epidemiologists and our outbreak teams that did this work. We also then, kind of the next phase of the pandemic for us, you know, at the beginning, we really as a nation had very little testing abilities. So we had some tests, but it was limited and we couldn't open it up broadly. A few months into the pandemic, we finally had the Ohio National Guard and the state open up testing significantly. Our team brought in the Ohio National Guard. We completed nearly 6,200 tests at 7 locations. Those locations were identified by Governor DeWine as being hotspots or areas with significant amounts of COVID-19. What was interesting and has been interesting for me throughout this journey that my team went on, everybody was trying everything they could to help the public, but we didn't really always know all the pieces and how they line up. I was told by the National Guard, we pick the location and we'll come in, we'll test, and it would be great. And we'll do the test for the community. What it turned out was the National Guard would come and test, but then I had to call all 7,000 people back and let them know the outcome of those tests. So we quickly scrambled, added on about 15 temporary employees and phone banks, and figured out a way to manage that work. But really, throughout the pandemic, I can't blame the governor's office or the Ohio Department of Health or the National Guard, because everybody was stressed to a point of just doing the best we can. And so we all came together as agencies and we put it together, and over the course of a holiday weekend, we were able to call people back. It still took 3 days for your results, but it was the best any of us could do at the time with what we had. The other piece that was kind of immense before I move on to kind of the current update was our public relations work. I have an amazing team of folks that manage our social media and the media when they contact our office, as well as keeping our website up to date. You can see there from the chart, we had over the course of 2020 that 1.5 million page views on our website. We updated our website. We really wanted to be as transparent as legally possible, protecting health information, but sharing information with the public so that people knew what was happening within your community. And to that, and we, in a future slide, I'll show you specific for Gulf Manor 45237. You can actually drill into our website and get information for specific zip codes and get that data so that you can see what's happening around you. And that was kind of one of our goals throughout the pandemic. So looking at where we are today, I think I hear a lot of folks feel like things are over. I'm sitting in a room with 15 people, 20 people, and no one has masks on. Things are starting to feel more normal. And that is in large part thanks to vaccine. And I'll share some of the numbers with vaccine, and I'll talk a little bit about where we are today with COVID. But I think it's important always to stress, even today, that COVID is still within our community. Today in Hamilton County, there are 1,750 active cases of COVID-19. So if you've not been vaccinated, you are at equal risk today as you were 6 months, 9 months ago for contracting COVID-19. We know that many of us won't develop severe symptoms. We know that there's a certain percentage of people that will develop severe symptoms, but it's important to not forget that COVID is still here. So I think that's one perspective. So as we look at our community, we are at, really from my perspective, an all-time low for cases. Our peak was December 10th. We had, on a 7-day average, we had 716 cases per day. Today, we are at 16 cases per day. Now, I will share, last week, we were actually at 13 cases per day for the 7-day average, so we did uptick a little. Not super concerned, but it does kind of mirror that national average where we're starting to see some increases. As far as COVID variants, we have about 128 COVID variants that we know about in Hamilton County. I am certain, though, when you hear about percentages that we believe Ohio to be at, these are grossly underreported. We have significantly more than the 128 variants here in Hamilton County that I have knowledge of. Good news, once again, the vaccine is effective against the variants. So if you're talking to somebody, or if somebody is watching today and is concerned when I say we have 128 and that's only a small percentage, if you've not been vaccinated, the number one way to protect yourself is to get vaccinated. So shifting just momentarily, this is from this morning. This is Gulf Manor's data. This is throughout the pandemic. Here in Gulf Manor, we've had 633 cases. Let me pause. In zip code 45237, which includes several communities, we've had 633 cases of COVID-19, 19 hospitalizations, and 8 deaths. It's a little hard to see on the screen there, but it does break down percentages of age, or it breaks it down by age, as well as by sex and race. The term presumed recovered, somebody who gets COVID-19 21 days after they contract COVID-19, you're considered presumed recovered. So that's where that number comes from. It's merely a calculation. And then the bottom graph there just shows that you guys are trending basically just as the rest of Hamilton County was. You had your peaks back in mid-December, and right now you guys are kind of at an all-time low for cases, which is good news. Positivity rates for the 14-county region, we are at 1.6%. Hamilton County, when you look at it, I haven't had a chance to see the data for just Hamilton County in a week, but it sits right around 1.6% as well. Last week, we were at 2.6%. Things continue to trend in that positive direction, which is all good news. Reproductive value is an interesting one. And the issue really with reproductive value today is that our cases are so low, it's extremely sensitive. So that red arrow is pointing at one day that had kind of a blip with the amount of cases. We had a high number of cases that day. All of a sudden, the reproductive value jumps up. Today's reproductive value is 1.59. Friday, it was 0.93. So it's really very volatile right now, but no concerns from my perspective. In general, the pandemic continues to decrease or stay fairly flush here in Hamilton County. Hospitalizations as well, we've been very fortunate. We now have enough gear for our first responders. We now have seen the number of hospitalizations decrease in our 14 county region. And the reason why 14 counties is important is we share resources. You know, lots of folks come over from Butler County into our hospitals and Claremont County into our hospitals. And so if one hospital in Hamilton County gets busy, we ship patients over into Claremont County and do some load balancing. So this 14 county region, we have 52 patients right now within the hospital system, 16 or so individuals in the intensive care unit and on ventilators. Now, I think the most important statistic, once again, tying it back to vaccine, if you want to stay out of the hospital, of those people in the hospital, 99.75% of them have not been vaccinated. So the number one way to stay out of the hospital is vaccine. It's proven time and time again, and that's a national statistic. So 99.75% of the people in the hospitals have not been vaccinated. Really, just it's mind-blowing when you think about how effective the vaccines that we have available and how well they're working. So since I keep talking about vaccine, let's look at how we're doing as a county. We as a county have continued to do better than the state of Ohio. We're at 50.52% of total population has been vaccinated. State of Ohio is at 48.13. When you look at those individuals that are over the age of 12 or those individuals that are able to be vaccinated, that thermometer represents that population. We're at about 58, 59% of our eligible population has been vaccinated. When you look at each age group, I'm pleased to report, even though we're not vaccinating as many people each week, each age group continues to get vaccinated. We're seeing every age group accept the vaccine, which is positive. It means that eventually we'll get to some of these goals that we hear about, whether it's the national goal of 70% total vaccination or the region goal of 80%, which we think is necessary for a strong herd immunity. The good news, though, the good news, though, from my perspective, when you look at those individuals over the age of 60, we have reached that national goal. Senior citizens we know are most susceptible to COVID-19 illness and severe illness. Over the age of 60, we have successfully vaccinated 7 out of 10 people, and many individuals we've gotten closer to 80%. So we have really done an excellent job in these older demographics. And my team will continue to do work, and many partners will continue to do work on those other demographics and hopefully get them up. And it's my hope that if we see a lot more COVID this fall, it's my hope that it will be less severe of illness because it's younger demographics. There's a lot of unknowns there. We don't know what the Delta or what the various variants are going to do. We know about the Delta spreading more rapidly, but we really don't know what it will look like in the grand picture. There could be new variants that we're not talking about today. We just don't know, but it's my hope that because we've done such a good job with our over 60 population that we'll see less impact. One thing of interest, kind of tying back to that, I know the text is kind of hard to read on the slide, but the green boxes represent percentage vaccinated by age group. So that top left box is our youngest age group, and we're starting to see the percentage or the number of people per 100,000 increase with regards to the number of cases. So those first two age groups, we're starting to see some increase in COVID cases. So this might just be one more argument showing proof that vaccine is working in reducing the amount of COVID-19. The bottom right box, I have a hard time explaining. That represents 80-year-olds and above, and they are still showing about 4 cases per 100,000, which we haven't seen any major drop-off. If I had to give my own commentary to that, we know that 20% of folks haven't been vaccinated. And we know nursing homes are very difficult environments for COVID-19. I have a feeling that for some folks who are in nursing home environments, the virus is still pretty impactful, and that might be some of why that number hasn't dropped like other age groups. And almost finished here, I wanted to share, in Hamilton County at this point in time, if you want a vaccine, there are more than 200 locations in the county where you can go walk up, get a vaccine without an appointment. So it's easy, it's convenient, there's locations close to home. Every home in Hamilton County is within about a 10-minute drive to a vaccine location. My team is setting up mobile units. Those are the locations on the left. If in Gulf Manor you ever want us to come, you have an event that you want us to come to, just let us know. We'll bring a team out of nurses in our van and we can offer vaccine right there. We're typically offering all 3 vaccines because we know for some folks, they have an opinion on which vaccine they want. And we don't want to create any barriers for folks. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible as we continue on our vaccine campaign through the end of the year.
And that's free of cost and no ID required?
No ID required, free of charge, and every now and again, we'll even incentivize it. So yeah, really great opportunity, just let us know. And then lastly, Hamilton County early on invested about $18 million in testing throughout Hamilton County. So I guess if you ever need a free testing resource here in Gulf Manor, there's opportunities through the Test and Protect program. The county did not use all that funding that they originally allocated, and so they are working with the Health Collaborative to help do some vaccination coordination efforts with our 5 hospital systems. We're lucky here in Hamilton County. All 5 systems are engaged. All hospital systems are vaccinating in the general population at primary care offices and special clinics. We are unique. Many counties are no longer doing that. Many rural counties or hospitals have pulled back and aren't a partner anymore. So we're very lucky that we had 5 engaged systems here in Hamilton County, and the county was helping with some of that coordination. And then lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you. My team, as I mentioned, we're less than 120 people, and we couldn't have done it without our healthcare heroes. We couldn't have done it without our communities and the information that you shared with your residents. It was a group effort. It really was. Our fire departments played a major role in Hamilton County. They vaccinated over 2,200 people in Hamilton County, our fire departments alone. They went to homebound residents and vaccinated over 400 homebound residents. So really just from all different aspects, we had a huge teamwork approach. And when you look at a public health system like we have here in Ohio, really those partnerships are key. So me being able to come out tonight and talk to you and update you is important. The communication, Mayor Densmore was on a call weekly with me throughout the pandemic. And that opportunity to provide two-way communication to our jurisdictions was just critical for making sure we were all on the same page, understood what was happening, and making sure our residents had the best public health response possible. That is all I have for you today. Happy to take any other questions that you may have.
I want to thank you and please pass along to your team our thanks for the great work that you've done over the past year and a half. As Mr. Kesterman said, I had the honor of, as an elected official, getting weekly reports with such great data as you saw in this presentation. I was getting that on a weekly basis, and I oftentimes felt like I was getting better information than what was on the local news, and tried to convey that at each of our council meetings. You guys did a great job keeping us up to date on sometimes we get really confusing about what's real, what's not real, and always had really good data coming out of the Hamilton County Health Department. And I see that as largely due to you. So thank you very much for your service. And if there are no other questions, go ahead. Yes.
Is there, I know right now the 4 age, we call it that, is 12. But is there any hints on whether it might go lower than that?
There's a lot of belief this fall we'll have vaccine for 2 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
Yep, there's studies ongoing, and they've actually applied to the FDA for approval.
Have you seen, I have the son with Down syndrome, and I know we've seen different studies and things like that, they're more high risk. High risk. Have you heard anything on that either?
I have not specifically, but I always encourage in those special instances, talk with your primary care provider. Yep.
I asked Mr. Health Commissioner Kesterman to help me in honoring the individual health workers that we have here in Hamilton County, or here in Hamilton County, here in Gulf Manor, especially, that are residents here. And I'm going to read the proclamation. I want to say thank you before I, read the proclamation. As huge thank you. A lot of us, got to stay at home during this, and you guys, a lot of you had to work through this time. Some of you volunteered to work, and just really appreciate everything that you did. And a lot of the words of that are in this proclamation that I'll read. I hope that I mention everyone by name that's in here. I know that we couldn't possibly have captured everyone in Gulf Manor. Councilman Snyder, myself, and a bunch of volunteers hand-delivered into each mailbox a request for folks to let us know if you were a healthcare provider. I know some households, I got notified even as recently as this week, some households said we didn't get one. So, it wasn't a perfect distribution. Happy that you're here. Worst case scenario, if you're not on this list, you just let me know and I'll reprint one for you that has you on it. I believe that you're on this list. I'm going to read through all the names, and when I'm done, if you would, what I'll do is try to think of the best way to hand them to each one of you. And I wanted to let you know that Mr. Kesterman and myself will take an official ceremonial picture with you as well, if you like, and we can send it to you digitally. So if you'd like that, just let us know. We can, and we'd like to do this, right after I read the proclamation so that you guys don't have to stay here. We're gonna have a long meeting tonight with a lot of stuff going on, so don't want to have you guys waiting here all night. So we're gonna try to take care of this promptly. After I read the proclamation, why don't we, what I'll do is I'll walk around to the back, and you can let me know if you're a healthcare professional, and I'll hand you one, and we'll give you a round of applause for your service, personal thanks, and if you want a picture, we'll do that. All right. So this is proclamation number 2021-5, honoring healthcare workers on active duty during COVID-19. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has represented an unprecedented challenge to our nation's modern healthcare infrastructure over the past year and a half, and whereas healthcare workers across the country were called upon to remain at work, or in some cases to come out of retirement during the pandemic, to place themselves and their families at mortal risk in the service of others. And whereas healthcare workers contributed to the safety of our local community in various capacities, some by working directly with individual victims of COVID-19, some by maintaining the stability of our healthcare infrastructure in other ways as physicians, nurses, healthcare aides, and EMTs. And whereas the village of Gulf Manor is home to over a dozen of these healthcare workers, including specifically Neferati Alderidge, LPN, working at Bright Star Senior Living; Jana Becksmith, RN, telemetry charge nurse, Bethesda North Hospital; Jasmine Kennedy, home health aide at Home Helpers; Tujan Clayton, health system specialist for Cincinnati VA Medical Center; Jerice Ewell, patient transport at Christ Hospital; Vivian Ewell, RN, quality manager of Crossroad Health Center; Tamara Flanagan, phlebotomist at TriHealth; Tasha Gooden, RN, critical care nurse, UC Medical Center; Stephen Reiger, speech language pathologist at St. Elizabeth Healthcare; Sandy Sullivan Fogelson, who came out of retirement to help administer COVID vaccines for CVS Pharmacy; Tracy Mashmore Vinehorn, RN, VA Medical Center; Lisa Zafiro, RN, weekend charge nurse, Operation Room, Jewish Hospital; Dr. Christopher Zaleski, MD, emergency medicine resident physician at UC Health; and Elizabeth Zaleski, RN, Cincinnati Children's Medical Center. Now therefore, I, Stephen Christian Densmore, Mayor of the Village of Gulf Manor, do hereby honor and extend my deepest thanks and gratitude to the healthcare workers of our community for their heroic efforts and for their spirit, love, and skill provided during the COVID-19 pandemic. Further, I encourage all residents of the Village of Gulf Manor to acknowledge the significant contribution that has been made by healthcare workers during the COVID-19 pandemic and their devotion to the health and well-being of the greater community. Can I have someone volunteer to be the official picture taker?
I will do that. On my phone? Or
Yes.
do we have a camera? Okay.
We can do it on my phone because I have all their email addresses.
Okay.
And I can email it to them.
Which flag are we doing it with?
I think it might be easier to come around this way and do it with the higher flag. There's one on here. Tell me when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Very secure. You want me to bring these up?
Yeah, actually, that might be the best way to do it.
Maybe, Ashley, you want to come in here?
Yeah, Ashley, this ain't.
Yeah,
going
you got,
Okay.
you got a great angle.
Yes. All right. He is this job.
Hardest to see.
All right. Oh, this is good. We moved.
Exactly.
You know this is going on for me.
You mean to move my garbage there?
All right. Ready? Cheese. All right. Perfect.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right. Got it. Thank you.
I'm not gonna know everyone's name, so let's,
You know what, I'm behind the scenes,
okay.
everything. So I sent out over 2 million face masks on Medicare and healthcare. So.
Did we get
just
you on the
go
list?
No, don't
Did we
worry
get you on the
about
list?
it, yeah. I'll get it later.
That's, all right,
Yeah.
you let me know, because
Okay.
actually, someone asked, I sent out an email today
Yeah.
for someone that thought that we were only recognizing nurses. And
Right.
I was saying, no, it's, nurses couldn't have done it alone.
Right.
We
So
want to
I work
recognize
for you,
all
man, so I
healthcare.
was in the back, sending out tips and doing all that stuff, so.
Well, thank you for your
Thank
service.
you.
Yeah, a little bit help.
And
All the face masks, all the
you leave your contact information.
Yeah, you should do a picture. Yeah, go do a picture.
Let's get your picture. Holding it.
I know where she lives.
We'll get your
Make
picture holding it. All
Okay,
right,
great.
and then what I'll do is you leave your contact information, and I'll send you one that's updated.
So I would help her.
Congratulations.
Ready? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Our person who came out of retirement.
I know.
You back in? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you. One, two, three. Thanks.
All right. Chief Campbell, could you help people organize as far as who would come in next?
Oh, there would be.
They're just guests.
They're here for you. Would you like a picture with all of them? They're here, okay. So that would be.
do a group picture.
I don't like pictures.
What's gonna happen now?
There we go. All right. Are we ready? All right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Sorry, man.
You shall not pass.
Oh,
yeah.
Always did bring my water. You bet, sorry.
Keep rolling.
Not Kevin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I think she was.
I got it. Did you get her contact info?
Not yet.
Oh, right.
So-
So, yeah. I was like, I can text her.
I wasn't in the front line, I went, you know where I am.
That's true.
I said, well, what's to do? Oh, yeah, that's a great note. Yeah. Juice up.
Recorded.
Get through all this consistency, seems appropriate. Chief Timbers, would you like to begin your report?
Sure. I'd like to say thanks for inviting me. It's nice to be out and seeing people in meetings instead of Zoom. Just give you a little update on the fire department. Station 47, as you can see, is been keeping busy. One of the things we did is July 8th, we had 60 kids visit the firehouse from one of the schools over here on Santville.
Thank you, sir.
Good. And they are welcome to come here anytime. They don't have to be there from before anything like that. They can stop by anytime. Just to give you a couple things, some of the details that you see on your thing here. You see in the fire details, we had a water rescue. That was because of the heavy rains that we had on I-71. We had several cars that were stranded on 71, so that's what the water rescue is. The structure fire you see there, I believe that was the one on St. Albans. We had 3 dogs that perished in that fire. And then I know somebody wanted to know about the difference between our account on ALS and BLS runs. Maybe you? Okay. All right, so hopefully that suffices what I have.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. So, and I
It was also just a general question, like what on here is called an ALS and what on here would be called BLS.
okay, so what we consider an ALS run is anything cardiac, trouble breathing, a drug overdose, anything that we have to give any type of medications, because the EMTs can't give the medicine, the paramedics have to give medicine. So anything that we have to give them medicine, that's ALS.
So is it considered an ALS run even if ALS services were not rendered?
Correct. Yeah, because once, if
Once they're
somebody,
out there, I understand.
somebody will say, yeah, I'm having chest pain. Well, it could be anxiety. Who
Right,
knows?
or heartburn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so, with that, if there's any other questions, then I am done.
Any other questions? Chief Simmers, thank you very much for coming on in person. It's good to see you here.
Hi, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you later. Okay, thank you.
All right, a couple more items. I'm going to shift in here to my mayor's report. And first item I wanted to touch on is the relaunch of our village newsletter. I mentioned this earlier. It's how we got the names of all these healthcare workers, or I should say all the names. We got significantly more names. Ms. Snyder, myself, Snyder got a hold of a lot of volunteers to be able to, and actually I wanted to ask you, are you able to list those folks so we can officially thank them?
I am a little afraid that I would leave people out. I don't have a list prepared, so
Okay.
I'm happy to get that to you.
All right. Next meeting, I will officially, or maybe our next newsletter, officially thank all those folks. Wouldn't have been possible. I mean, you can imagine we were walking the streets. I took care of Ridge Acres and Weehee. And what streets did you grab?
I did Elbrook and Rosedale, is that what that is?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then, but all streets were covered, so we had a lot of volunteers out there delivering the newsletter. So we're relaunching this. What it looks like is using a monochrome toner, all right? So black and white. Mr. Hirth does the magic as far as getting the content arranged in a way that's beautiful and succinct on one side of paper. And I see this as the voice of the mayor and council with content curated, edited by Ms. Snyder and myself. All right. We got the word out about a number of things going on. What was it all? It was the village yard sale and cleanup was in it. It's for the road project update, 4th of July parade as well. So brief snippets. One of the big pieces of this, of course, I think is just tuning people into that we have a website, right? A lot of folks don't know that they can even subscribe to that. And this helps get the word out about that. And
Does this go out as part of the subscription pop-up that the website asks for?
not this here, but actually this one did. Like, so the newsletter would go physically into people's mailboxes, all right? Digital copy of it is then also published on the website, all right? And if you subscribe with that pop-up, yeah, you get, I think, is it a weekly blast of what or does it each time there's a new item that goes out?
We haven't done a blast since the pandemic began.
Okay.
So
So-
we need to decide how we want to deal with that.
Right. Okay, so there's different ways of doing it. I'm familiar with the organizations that I've been involved with. They'll do it like on a weekly basis. There's a program that allows it to just be automated. However many news stories were generated in that particular week, it all gets pushed out to the folks that subscribe on Saturday morning at 6 a.m. So that's something to read in the morning with the coffee or whatever. So I want to thank the folks that helped make that possible. It's how we identified a number of the healthcare workers, and we'll identify further the names of the volunteers at our next meeting. The next item, wanted to update on where we are with the NDO. I'm creating a committee to select members for the NDO commission, and so want to put the word out there that if you know folks that would be interested on that committee, let me know, because we're going to be forming that committee. Next item, I attended the Pride Picnic, which was coordinated by Gulf Manor resident Melody Mail to celebrate Pride Month. It was well attended. One of the folks there, am I pronouncing this right? Jackie Martin, was a member of the legal team that successfully legalize gay marriage in the United States. So the case before the Supreme Court. So one of the members there was famous. Right. Well, there was a number of council members there.
That's true.
Um,
That would be info.
So one of the things that that was pointed out to me that I failed to do was to make it clear that when I'm doing proclamations, that anyone during a council meeting can make a motion to affirm. And we didn't do that with this proclamation. So at this time, I want to ask if there's a motion for the council to affirm that particular proclamation.
Motion to affirm.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, that looks unanimous. Thank you. Next item was a belated Father's Day announcement, which is we have changing tables in all the public Golf Manor bathrooms. All right, so for the men, in the men's rooms and in the women's rooms, there's changing tables. So happy Father's Day. You are now able to help out with changing diapers in all the bathrooms in Golf Manor. So awesome. Let's see. Oh, I wanted to, the 4th of July parade and picnic, I want to I read a proclamation there honoring the Golf Manor Police Department, first responders, but specifically the Golf Manor Police Department and the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District. I would like to have, did I previously have this affirmed at our previous council meeting?
No.
I was thinking that I did, but if I did not, I would ask for a motion now to affirm that. And I can, if anyone would like me to read it here, I'm thinking that I'd already read it here, but I read it on the 4th of July. Would you like me to read it again?
We wrote it after the last council meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So I will read it here. Proclamation number 2021-4 honoring Golf Manor's first responders, the Golf Manor Police Department, Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District. Whereas the health and welfare of the village of Golf Manor and its residents depends on the service of reliable professional police, fire, emergency medical, and paramedic services to residents. And whereas the village is reliant upon the recruitment, retention, and dedication of talented individuals as first responders to perform their duties and responsibilities in a professional and capable manner. And whereas during the COVID-19 pandemic, the members of the Golf Manor Police Department served the village residents in an honorable and extraordinary manner, as has been their tradition for nearly 75 years. And whereas the members of the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District also served village residents in an honorable and extraordinary manner during the challenging public health crisis. And whereas the residents and businesses of the village appreciate and value the dedication, duty, and sacrifice of the men, and women who serve us daily and exemplify excellence through sharing their wealth of expertise and knowledge for the benefit of the greater good of the community. Now, therefore, I, Stephen Densmore, Mayor of the Village of Golf Manor, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the village charter, laws of Ohio and the United States, do hereby affirm and proclaim Sunday, July 4th, 2021 as First Responders Day, in addition to Independence Day, in the Village of Golf Manor. And I ask the community on that day to join us in thanking our first responders and their contributions to the village and the surrounding communities. So we also, so I read this at the 4th of July picnic, and I'm going to thank the folks who organized that, and mention that at the 4th of July picnic, we also recognized that the grand marshals of the parade were our first responders. And want to thank specifically Sergeant Reed for his actually years of service of helping coordinate the events of the parade. And I have another list here. Councilman R.E.A. Pridenoff, Danny Knipp, all of these councilmen, Roger Van Harn, and former Mayor Greg Schwarzberg for financially sponsoring the picnic after the parade. Councilman Knipp also took care of the music and the setup, helped me figure out how to use a microphone as well. So for folks that weren't interested, I could still get their attention. Mr. Van Hard helped put together and I want to say oversee and protect the Kids Bicycle Brigade, which I very much enjoyed. I rode along with my kids in it, and I appreciated his putting that together. The Randolph family for organizing helpers to serve. The grilling tent provided by Alter Rob Vogel. And Mike Stern for bearing the heat of grilling over 250 hot dogs. Zahara Zurov for helping with the setup, and Cincinnati Circus for all the blow-ups and umbrellas. And I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. Mr. President? All right.
It's a week. It's been too long.
It was a wonderful time. Had a very large attendance there. Want to make sure that that everyone that helped put that together was thanked. So, next item I have is to let you know that I'm forming a park committee that will help advise myself and the administration on most immediately our plans with the park's playground equipment. And what I'm looking for is young people, seniors, parents that have kids to be on this committee, so that we're getting a real good perspective of what we want to do with the playground equipment. So if you have recommendations for me for filling this committee, please grab a hold of my ear and let me know. I want to form this ASAP, so looking for those recommendations. And I believe that's it for the.
Did you want to present this to Chief Campbell?
Chief Campbell, would you like to have a picture taken with me in front of the?
Oh, your hair's a mess.
I know. Somebody get my. Actually, one of you guys want to order the hat?
No, you should have seen Forrest said that.
No, I did.
I heard about it.
You should have seen it.
That was a dog, a little bit of a dog there.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to affirm that proclamation.
Is there a second? I can. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And you
Thank
should
everyone.
affirm the one you read this evening.
Oh, yes, and the, thank you. It would be remiss if we did not affirm the healthcare proclamation that was made today. Is there a motion?
I thought
Actually, you did.
I thought that was the Pride proclamation that you asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
did
just
do
if
this
we were
one.
talking about like just now, I have not asked for that one, so, yeah, who's the pride one?
Oh.
Workers.
We're affirming this evening's proclamation for the healthcare workers.
I think it's Eric's turn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job, Eric.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Hurst.
For the healthcare workers.
I proclaim it's been a busy week. Couple things to follow up with council on. We did receive a response for the waste collection RFP. The only respondent was Rumpke, who gave us a proposal last Thursday. We'll be sitting down on Wednesday with a representative from Rumpke, the chair of the executive committee, Ms. Snyder, and a couple of other people to go through and have them present that to us. There are some questions we have. We should be in a position within the next couple of weeks to report back to council what our recommendation is. We may need to ask for a special executive committee meeting to go through that, but we'll let you know as we get through that meeting on Thursday. Wanted to give you an update on road project funding for 2022. This is for next year. There were 3 projects that were identified. We have been trying to secure funding to do those 3 projects. What has been approved so far is Canterbury Avenue from Fair Oaks to Englewood, and then the entire length of Englewood from the golf course to Sandoval. That total project will be $450,000. $212,640 is the village's contribution to that. The rest will be by a grant that we're receiving from the Ohio Department of Transportation in Hamilton County, OPWC. Elbrook, which, as we reported at the last council meeting, would be a total of $780,000, is being funded by the village with a 20-year interest-free loan. That has been secured, so that project will take place next year. And then the third larger project is Weehee rehabilitation from Cincinnati to the Amber Lake Corp line. That will be a $1,021,950 project. We are looking for half of that in grants, which means the village's contribution would be $510,975. It looks likely that we will get that funding through the transportation fund. And then the part that we owe, again, will be a 20-year interest-free loan that we can pay off in monthly installments or as a lump sum as we have funds available. That is huge. 3 major road projects in addition to the one that we're completing this year with Vera and Short Elbrook. So that at that point means in the last 5 years, we have paved almost 3/4 of our roads in the village of Gulf Manor. So that's a huge achievement. Not to forget Vera, water main installation will start next week. Residents there, Mr. Pridenoff and Ms. Cheney, you've probably seen the curb cuts that have been made and then the cut down the center of the street. What they'll be doing first is digging out the center of the street, replacing and connecting the new water main. After that, they will do the curbs. And after that, they will do resurfacing, starting with the Vera service drive and then move over to Vera itself. Wanted to make council aware that we have completed classes for diversity training with the village employees on June 3rd and 10th. 3 different classes were held, and then we did a follow-up leadership summary and training on July 8th. I think everybody enjoyed that training. We had a great trainer who works for the Dublin school system, who actually is a property owner here in the village of Gulf Manor. And I've gotten lots of good feedback from folks on that. Mr. Lanzer went into more detail on the banking RFP, but we did receive proposals from Fifth Third Bank, our current vendor, US Bank, and PNC Bank. We're going to ask council this evening to pass legislation continuing our relationship with Fifth Third Bank for a 5-year period. We're going to have a huge savings on our monthly banking fees with this new contract. Other legislation that we'll be looking at this evening to wrap up some projects we've been working on is an approval of the employee health care plan for the new plan year, which starts on August 1st. Funding the new roof for the fire and rec building, as we are going to reappropriate part of the reserve to cover the $91,000 to replace the roof. That project should be done within the next 2 weeks. And then there are various levy scenarios related to fire and EMS services and the 5-year 2 mil operating levy that'll be covered in Mr. Donnellan's report. At the end here, I'm going to ask Mr. Lanzer if he would report on the buildings that we have condemned at 6055 and 6066 Stover Avenue.
Fairly straightforward. These are two properties in the Stover cul-de-sac that have been recurrent property maintenance challenges for the village. Put it simply, they're extremely blighted properties. The property managers and the property owners of these two buildings are unresponsive to most efforts coming from the village, as well as our partners from the Board of Health. And in addition to property maintenance challenges there, there is pretty substantial health and safety issues in each of those buildings as well. I mentioned in the executive meeting, one building has mold in the bottom unit. The boiler system doesn't work in the same building. And then similar challenges in 6066 Stover as well. There was a family there's actually two sets of families in 6055, which to me is kind of heartbreaking that they went the entire winter without heat. But we worked with them to find alternative housing, and we proceeded to board up those buildings. 6066, no, it was unoccupied. There was a swatting issue that was addressed by the police department, and that building has been barricaded as well. So next steps is figuring out our short-term and long-term strategy on the buildings, find sufficient funding for whatever route we choose to go.
Thank you. And that concludes the report.
Thank you. Chief Campbell, or sorry, out of turn. Mr. Lancer.
All right. Be somewhat brief on the financial package. Long meeting tonight. For the month of June, the village had an adjusted bank balance of $3.5 million. I want to point out that of this, the vast majority is in the primary checking account for the village, having the dedicated road and street funds can only be spent for those purposes. For the month of June, the village had 89 cleared payments that totaled $213,000. As for receipts, the village received 27 payments that totaled $203,000. In regards to appropriations, the village spent $72,000 for the month of June. This figure is an increase of what was spent when we compared it to June of last year. The top 5 payment payees for the month were payroll, of course, Rumpke, Ohio Police and Fire Pension, COSI, which is the employee health insurance, and OPERS, which is the employee retirement. For the year, total appropriation spend is $969,000. That's the end of my financial report.
Thank you. Any questions?
So if I could note, of the monies that Mr. Lancer stated were set aside for road projects, with the projects that we have committed for next year or have pending commitment, in addition what's committed for the Vera project, that's about $2 million of that fund.
Yes.
That'll be paid out to take care of those road projects.
Very good. Any questions? Chief Campbell.
Thank you. First, I have the mayor's total report for the month of June. Total to the village, $2,880.50. Total to the state, $660. The other line is $109.50 for a total $3,650. That is the end of the June mayor's court report.
Do we have a motion? Yes, sir.
Second.
Mayor's court.
Second.
Secondly, I want to.
Wait, hold on a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
I wanted to report secondly that we were awarded a grant for body armor from the Attorney General's office. So we just got the notification this morning that we'll be reimbursed $4,177.38. We were able to replace nearly, if not all, the body armor that the officers carry and wear. Doesn't include the canines, but pretty much everybody else is in newer armor that was purchased in the last
12 months. We'll continue to look for grant opportunities to replace our equipment as we go forward. And lastly, I briefed council on a shooting incident that occurred on June 12th, just before midnight. Since that time, I'm sorry to report that our victim, Mr. Lindsay, succumbed to his injuries on July 6th. So the investigation is ramping up, and we're working with Hampton County Sheriff's Department, and I will keep you in the loop on any future developments with this.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Or I preempted end of report.
That is the
Yes. Any questions? I had one about the body armor. That's awesome. How old, what's the lifespan of body armor? How old was our previous stuff, and what becomes of it? Do we auction that off? Do I get some body armor? Is that?
We're really, I think we're doing a really good job with our equipment, with our body armor, with our radios. We're staying ahead of the curve. Typically, body armor, the life of it is about 5 years. And it's worn down by motion. If you develop a crease when moving a certain way, it can create a weak point. Also sweat. We get pretty sweaty in that stuff. So after 5 years, we try to rotate it out. Usually what happens with older body armor is we do testing on it afterwards. We'll take it to the range, try different calibers of weapons and see how it responds. We let other agencies participate and do some testing that way. Once we cycle it out, it's done.
Any other questions?
Just a point of note, I know we had talked a few weeks ago about, I've been involved with that grant company for fire departments, but they do some stuff with police too. We talked about maybe inspection with them. They can help with some of the grant opportunities. And then, quick personal note, you guys do anything on bike safety or have a recommendation? My daughter's getting to the point where she's doing, really riding around. And I was telling her the day you got to learn traffic laws. I didn't know how to teach her. Is there a recommendation for that?
We currently don't have a program. I would look into some of the like city rec centers.
Okay.
They likely do, and my guess is the county health department would have a program.
Okay.
But we don't offer one at this time.
Mr. Van Arn, if you would investigate that, I'd appreciate it and report to me, because I'm interested in that as well. I've got a 10-year-old who's now riding to all the little libraries across the village. And I think it'd be great if we gathered up bicycle riders in the community and had them all sit down and have an officer kind of go through what the rules are and how to be safe in the community. I think that'd be fantastic.
What was the second one you said? Rec center?
Yeah. And I can reach out if you like, if I can do since I've got the connection with Greg, with the health commissioner.
Okay.
I can reach out to him
Do
and
that,
see
I'll
if he.
do rec center. 'Cause I know
Cool.
something rec center.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for the chief? All right, I have on our schedule here, looking for a motion to go into executive session for matters of personnel and compensation of a public official or employee.
Do you want to do that now, or do you have to do that?
We typically do it at the end.
We
but
actually
it's
put it
listed
at this
here.
point so we could explain the legislation that'll be passed after the executive session.
So I'll turn it over to Mr. Donnellan, our solicitor, and we'll ask for a motion to go to executive session.
Yeah, so we have a motion second, roll call vote to executive session for matters of compensation of public official or public employee.
Second? You have a
Second.
For clarity, this is when we get to keep our secrets.
Mr. Betcher, Ms. Cheney,
But we will reconvene.
We will reconvene if you want to wait for a while.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Mr. Pridnoff,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
and Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Could you?
We want to include.
We need to, I want to say that again.
Maxie.
Yeah.